Wisconsin museums must comply with new federal rule about certain tribal artifacts. Museum directors across the state are scrambling to comply with a new federal rule that requires permission from tribal nations before displaying certain affiliated artifacts. Milwaukee Public Museum is thoughtfully reviewing the Native where'd we go here? The Native American cultural heritage items currently on display, and in the coming weeks will remove items from view or cover exhibits that do not comply with the latest regulations, said a statement released Tuesday by the museum. Milwaukee Public Museum officials say the changes to exhibits will likely be small. Thanks to the museum's ongoing consultation work with tribes, and new regulations will have a relatively small impact on MPM's exhibits compared to other museums who have closed entire galleries, the statement read. The new rule has caused significant changes to museum displays in other parts of the country. The Field Museum in Chicago, for example, has covered several display cases in its Halls of the Ancient Americas exhibit, according to a statement on its website earlier this month. And the American Museum of Natural History in New York is closing an entire exhibit to comply with the new rule. The Native American Graves Protection and Reparation Act, also known as NAGPRA, was enacted in 1990 and calls for the protection and return of Native American remains, funerary objects, sacred objects, and objects of cultural patrimony to affiliated tribes. The new rule requires that those items not be displayed without tribal permission or if within the process of reparation. The new rule has caused significant changes to museum displays in other parts of the country. Oh, I just read that. My bad. But the process of returning those ancestors and items can take years and even decades, particularly if museum officials aren't certain which tribe those human remains and items belong to. Museums in Wisconsin today don't have any Native American human remains on display, but many still have bones as part of their inventory, as well as burial items. The Milwaukee Public Museum, for example, has the remains of more than 1,600 Native Americans in its possession. Beth Kowalski, executive director of the Newville Public Museum in Green Bay, said the museum's latest return of Native ancestors took place in 2016 with the Ho-Chunk Nation. That's where I'm from. I grew up right by the Ho-Chunk Nation. She said the museum is working on returning funerary items such as trade heads dug up from burial mounds to several California tribes. With the Newville Museum being 109 years old, Kowalski said many of the artifacts came from a time when non-Native Americans thought it was acceptable to dig up burial mounds and trade or sell the artifacts they unearthed. She said the Newville has been compliant with NAGPRA since it was enacted. The U.S. Department of the Interior, which is led by an indigenous person, Deb Haaland, well, how dare them, for the time, announced the new rule to NAGPRA on December 6th. Officials with the Wisconsin Historical Society, which has a museum in Madison, right by where I'm from, said they also have been compliant with NAGPRA and have worked closely with tribes in Wisconsin and elsewhere. In response to the NAGPRA changes, the Wisconsin Historical Society has introduced formal amendments to our collections policy to ensure compliance with the updates. And these amendments were approved by the Board of Curators earlier this month, museum officials said in a statement. The Beloit College Logan Museum of Anthropology is planning to cover up one of its exhibits to comply with the new NAGPRA rule, said Director Nicolette Blum-Meister. She said its second-story visible storage display contains hundreds of objects, and some are funerary items, which the museum is in the process of obtaining permission from associated tribes to display or will return. Now, is anyone else seeing now what grotesque things have been done, and we're just now here in 2024 realizing that they were wrong to do? I mean, will it be okay if someone takes your family's, where your family, the cemetery your family is buried in? I'm sure, everyone knows a cemetery where there's a lot of their family members buried. Would it be okay if you die and you're buried there and a bunch of your family, mom and dad, whatever, wife, kids, would it be okay if someday a group of people comes in and digs all that up, digs you guys up, your bodies, and puts you on display, the things that you were buried with? On display. Have your ancestors' bodies in their possession. Why in the world, after I read this, I was sitting here thinking, why in the world would anyone, or how could anyone justify doing that? I don't understand. I can guarantee you why it was done. I can guarantee you that it was a maximum profit venture, that they've come across the cemetery probably on some land that they wanted to build something profitable on, and they probably didn't, like a lot of times, other people, I'm sure, just bury over them and act like they didn't find them. Just bury the bones down in the ground and just build a big casino or something over top of it. If they had the bodies, they probably thought that they could make a profit off of those bodies, putting them on display. And if that's not the reason, if it's something beyond that, it's got to be something that's despicable. It comes from the darkest recesses of society. But no one's even considered how gross and absurd that is until now. They've been on display. I remember I've seen mummified remains in a glass cabinet. Now, you tell me if some things don't need some changing. No one should ever dig up a grave and do anything with it. But you're putting it in a glass case, and having a whole display, a museum where tourists can come in and just walk past it and look. It's beyond shameful. Yep, there's going to be a lot of changes, big changes, and you've done experience them, you've seen them yourself. But it's going to be far more drastic than it has been thus far. Removing this Band-Aid, it's going to take, it's going to hurt. It's going to take some time. It's that big. There's things that cannot be done. You can't enter the rain if you're the type of person that sees nothing wrong with digging up people's graveyards and putting the bodies on display, the bones. And I understand we all were clueless. We just hadn't matured, I guess, enough. But now that I see that that's disgusting, and there should be there could never be any justification to digging up someone's grave and doing that. Man, I got a magnificent piece of word to read to you tonight. Wait till you see this amazing truth. But look at this plot to the movie Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm sure you've heard of it. Why I haven't thought to look at this plot yet is beyond me. Well, just as much as I love laying out the evidence of Abba Yahuwah's awesomeness, I just can't help myself but to display my epicry at the same time. It's a perfect balance. It's harmony. When I'm reading the word, you see how perfect it is and dynamic. But then when I'm just talking, when it's kind of on me, I guess, I always make sure to put my epicry on full display. And that's Abba just setting me back in my place, and at the same time grabbing my hand and leading me along. If I fall, I stumble, he's there to pick me back up and brush me off. And he just keeps on a-trucking with you. Wait till you see this. Love and Thunder. And no, I'm not promoting it. I'm here to say what I said the other night, what I've been saying, but what I said the other night, last night, that all these movies are saying the same thing. Watch this. Watch what this plot of Love and Thunder says. Gore and his daughter, Love, his daughter's name's Love, the last of their race, struggle in a barren desert. Despite their prayers to their god, Rapu, Love dies. The god-killing Necro Sword calls to Gore, leading him to Rapu's lush realm. After Rapu cruelly mocks and dismisses Gore's plight, he renounces the god, causing Rapu to strangle him. The Necro Sword offers itself to Gore, who kills Rapu with it and vows to kill all gods. Gore is granted the ability to manipulate shadows and produce monsters, but is cursed with impending death and corruption under the sword's influence. Thor has joined the Guardians of the Galaxy after the Avengers battle against Thanos. He learns of a distress signal from Sif, so he parts ways with the team. He finds an injured Sif who warns that Gore's next target is New Asgard. Meanwhile, Dr. Jane Foster, Thor's ex-girlfriend, has been diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. With medical treatment proving ineffective, she travels to New Asgard, hoping that Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, which was previously fractured by Hela, might heal her. Due to an enchantment Thor unknowingly placed on it years earlier to protect Foster, Mjolnir reforges and bonds itself to her. Thor arrives in New Asgard just as Gore's attack begins. Thor is surprised to find Foster wielding Mjolnir, but teams up with her, Valkyrie and Korg, to fight Gore. The group thwarts Gore, but he escapes, kidnapping several Asgardian children and imprisoning them in the Shadow Realm. The group travels to Omnipotence City to warn the other gods and ask for their help in creating an army. The leader of the gods, Zeus, is unwilling to help, thinking they can remain safe and hidden from Gore in the city. Just a spoiler too, that's Babylon City. Thinking they can remain safe and hidden from Gore in the city, he also believes that Gore will not be able to achieve his stated goal of visiting the realm of eternity, where he will be granted one wish, presumably to destroy all gods. As a security precaution, Zeus orders the group's capture to prevent them from exposing the city's location to Gore. When Zeus injures Korg, Thor impales Zeus with his thunderbolt. I'm not mic. The mic's not dropping right now, but I agree with you. We could drop it right now. Drop it like it's hot, but brace yourself. There's way more than this. Thor impales Zeus with his thunderbolt, which Valkyrie steals before they escape to confront Gore in the Shadow Realm. On the way, Thor learns of Foster's cancer diagnosis. The group arrive at the Shadow Realm, but are unable to locate the children. Foster sees ancient drawings that depict Thor's battle axe, Stormbreaker, as a way to summon the Bifrost to enter eternity. The Bifrost, the highway. The Bifrost is like a highway that connects, that in the story, Odin and Thor and them, they use it. They have a man on the edge of Asgard, the city Asgard, for those of you who don't know, who like sticks his sword in this rock and he points this like rainbow looking highway to whatever galaxy they want to go to. And then they just step onto that rainbow looking freeway and they end up in whatever galaxy or the 9 realms or whatever, you know? So it's a highway. And this is all symbolic and you need to understand all of it. You do. Not because you want to be a superhero fan, or not because you're a fanboy of any of this, and not because you worship any of those names and false deities and lies and BS. No. So you can see how the enemy is laughing at you, mocking you and telling you what's happened, what's going on, what he's doing to you. And at the same time, it's the Most High's mercy making sure that the truth is out there so you can find it and come home and live. He wouldn't leave you out here. He wouldn't let all this stuff remain hidden and you have no chance of finding it in order to be set free. No. All you got to do is ask. Wherever two or more are gathered in the name of the truth, of the word, seeking honestly the truth and the desire of the Father, there's nothing that's been hidden that will not be revealed to you. Nothing. Visiting the earth of the realm of eternity, which he will be granted one wish. Oh, I just read that part. My bad. When Zeus injures Korg, I read that part too. Got lost there where I was. My bad. The group arrive at the shadow realm but are unable to locate their children. I read this too. Oh, geez. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, I guess I didn't read that part. The group arrive at the shadow realm but are unable to locate the children. Foster sees ancient drawings that depict Thor's battle axe Stormbreaker as a way to summon the Bifrost to enter eternity, and deduces the trap laid out by Gore. So yeah, I got talking about the Bifrost. So Foster, Thor's ex-girlfriend, after she sees these ancient drawings of Thor's battle axe Stormbreaker, she figures out it's a way to summon the road, the highway, to enter into eternity, and deduces the trap laid out by Gore. If we're talking about the highway to get back to eternity, what could the trap be? The trap is another highway that leads off the cliff, and you just got no idea. However, wait. She throws away Stormbreaker to prevent Gore from accessing it. However, Gore overpowers the group and threatens to kill Foster, forcing Thor to summon it back. Gore successfully steals Stormbreaker and injures Valkyrie before a weakened Foster collapses. Upon traveling back to New Asgard, Thor discovers that Foster's Thor form is not allowing her body to naturally fight the cancer. Due to this, Thor travels to Eternity's altar alone, and using Zeus's thunderbolt, imbues the children with his power to fight Gore's monsters while he battles Gore. When Foster senses that Gore is about to kill Thor, she joins the battle with Minor to save him. They destroy the Necro Sword, freeing Gore from its influence, but the three are brought into Eternity's realm. With Gore poised to make his wish, Thor implores Gore to revive his daughter instead of destroying the gods. Thor then leaves Gore to make his decision and attends to Foster, who succumbs to her illness and dies in his arms. Moved by their display, Gore wishes for Eternity to revive love. Love. Remember, in Song of Songs, it says, "Don't wake love until it pleases." And he says it over and over again. And he's talking about the bride. He's talking about Yerushalayim. It would have done you no good to fall in love with your home, your inheritance. during the time that we couldn't have it, our punishment, our just punishment, the 430 years plus the 2,300 days, all that stuff, we weren't allowed to come back. Our people should have been lamenting, no doubt. We should have never forgotten the place of our, where we come from, for real. And where, if we claim to be servants, sons and daughters of the Most High, well, duh. If somebody asked you, well, where's he from? Where's the one you serve? Where's he from? What's he about? What do you know about him? It's just as dirtly obvious it should have been for us to not dig up cemeteries and put the dead bodies on display and make profits off of them. Just as a no-brainer as that was, just as big a no-brainer is, if you care, if you are who you say you're a child of the Most High, I can't tell, because you don't talk about where he's from, who he is. I mean, the majority of the world don't care about what his name is. They do everything that he's warned us in that Bible that they got, just like I do. They do everything that he's warned us not to do, and act like we can do whatever we want. We don't think nothing about where he set his name and his throne. And I'm not telling you this to beat you up. I'm hoping that you'll scratch your head and say, you know what? I should be more engaged with the Father and the Mishpachah and the place he set his name and his throne and our inheritance. It shouldn't be much to ask. As Gore dies from the curse, he requests Thor to take care of love and thunder. And that right there, just one day, if you ever figure out, if you don't already know, if you ever figure out the secrets of the thunder and the lightning, and when you realize, and it dawns on you what that means, you'll know that you love the Most High and his word. You'll know, it'll be a testament of your love affair with him. When you start to realize what it really means. It's, like I always talk about, satisfaction guaranteed. You ain't never been satisfied until you start to dance the dance. Put your feet on your daddy's feet and let him guide you along in this dance and in this song. Wait till you see this word. Look what we just read from a Thor movie. To hide the location of the city, thunderbolts. The necro sword that he was killing people with. Things. Just like the people who promote, preach, and teach falsehood. That their right hand is a right hand of lies. That's what that necro sword represents. Why didn't Thor throw a lightning bolt? Why is it called a thunderbolt? Verse of the day, Mark chapter 4, verse 9. And he said to them, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Have you ever heard the Most High say, watch my feet, watch my feet? Watch these moves that are second to none and that you need to hear. Context. And he began to teach again by the sea, and a large crowd was gathered to him, so that he entered into a boat to sit in the sea. And all the crowd was on the land facing the sea. And he taught them much in parables, and said to them in his teaching, listen, see, a sower went out to sow. Let me ask you guys a question. If the Messiah knows the truth that'll set us free, why can't he just get straight to the point? Why can't he just tell us how it is, what we got to do? Why is he talking in parables? I mean, we're here because we're looking how we're trying to figure out how we get out of this dark hole of death and enter into life. And he's got us on the side of the sea here, and he won't just tell us straight up. He keeps telling us in parables, and we don't understand what he's talking about. Why would he do that? If he loves us, why would he do that? Is he laughing at us? Is it a joke? Is that what this is? That's why understanding what the parables, the code words mean, is you'll understand that you've been romancing the Most High when you start to pick up on these code words. And it opens doors in the Word for you that were sealed, locked tight, that you didn't even know existed. There's levels to this. And understanding the parables is what it's all about, for one. It's the beauty of it. It's the Most High being the Most High and having all the right moves, saying all the right things with perfection. I understand that the people, they just want it, with no taste and no class, no flavor, no love. They just want to hear what they got to do. But even then, they got no intentions on following it. It's, when you know the Most High, you wouldn't ask for it any other way. You want it in the parable because it means more. It's accomplished more and will accomplish far more than just telling you straight up. And this is what separates the wheat from the chaff, the wheat and the tares. And this is the reason it has to be in parables. But it not only does it have to be, the Most High, that's what he does. He wants it that way. In the beginning, he spoke creation into existence. The Messiah is known as the Word. This is what he does. Every time people asked him to stop saying it in parables, what did he do? He went harder in the parables. Listen, see, a sower went out to sow, and it came to be as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the birds of the heaven came and devoured it. And other fell on rocky places where it had not much soil. And immediately it sprang up because it had no depth of soil. No depth. Kind of reminds me of deistic spirits. Will from that moment be without compass or direction. And longing for someone to give them direction, because they got no place to go. They don't know where to go because all their hopes, fantasies, dreams have been crushed, and they realize that was all a bunch of BS, and that they're not going to come true, and that they have to move on from it. When they come to that point, they'll go with the first idea that's sexy to them. So what is that? That's building your house on sand. You have no strength, no intentions on withstanding pressure. The only place that you can build on that will withstand all pressure is His Word. It's your rock. But when the sun was up, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. When the sun was up, it was scorched. Right now, the masses, the majority of the world, are being scorched and burnt up by the sun. Not literally, but yeah, a little bit literally too, huh? But they're being destroyed. The Son of Righteousness, with healing in its wings, has arisen, and the world is largely ignoring it. And others fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it out, and it yielded no crop. And I'll tell you right now, anywhere, if a young person who has never heard the word before, if they hear words of truth, of the good news, but if they live in an environment with people who plan on choking the word out, they got no intentions on obeying, doing any of the word. And I can tell you right now, and this is a 1,000,000,000% fact, anywhere, any holidays aren't disgusted. If you're anywhere where the holidays aren't seen as absolutely disgusting, that's a place of thorns, and the word is always going to be choked out by it. The word tells you to have nothing to do with those things. And it should be just as obvious as to why that is. Just as obvious as the fact that you shouldn't be digging up someone's grave and putting their remains in a glass box, a glass case on display. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer that if you say you love someone, you don't promote the people that you're committing adultery against him with. Any of those names, any of those holidays, it's adultery. It's a middle finger to the Most High. It's you saying, I don't care what you think. I don't care if that hurts your feelings or not. I'm going to do it. And that's that right hand of lies. That's what that's what Babylon produces. It produces mass confusion. And the world is left without compass or direction. They ain't got a clue what's going on, what the word says, what they believe, or what's going to happen. I mean, you should be able to agree with me that the world is in a delirious state, and they got no idea where is what's going on. There's no direction. No one knows what's going to happen. So the world is in a mass delusion. Wouldn't it be nice if you could come out of that and you didn't have to walk around blindly anymore? And you knew, you could say, oh no, I'm going to live forever. This is what the word says, and this is what I'm doing. And I actually do love the Most High. I'm not fronting. It's pretty nice over here, let me tell you. Over here on the side of boldness. And other fell on good soil and yielded a crop that came up, grew and yielded a crop, some 30-fold, some 60, and some 100, some 160 swiftly. And he said to them, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And when he was alone, those about him with the 12 asked him about the parable. Now pay attention, my mishpachah. And he said to them, to you it has been given to know the secret of the reign of the Most High. But to those who are outside of what? I'm telling you right now, you should already know. My sisters, I know, Sister Raina, you know what I'm talking about. We've been reading the secret of the Most High, haven't we? And how many, out of us, we have the opportunity to share that truth, that monumental, groundbreaking, revolutionizing truth with our brothers and our sisters who got no idea. And yes, it's going to be difficult, but that's not your problem. It should be a no-brainer that you would want to share this good news. I mean, without question. But those outside of the city, they got no idea what these parables mean. And all it takes is, this is how the word judges you. All it takes is care. The difference between someone who will understand what this word is telling us and someone who won't is the someone who will had to care enough to see what the word was actually saying. The rest of the society of the world, they could care less. They won't tell you that. But if they don't ever go look to see the truth of it, then they obviously didn't care. And like I said, I'm not beating you up. I'm trying to spread the cheer, my friend. So that seeing they see but do not perceive, and hearing they hear but do not understand, lest they should turn and their sins be forgiven them. And he said, and that's how your sins are forgiven. Until you say, you know what, just let me look to make sure if what I think that word's telling me is in fact telling me that. You just let me double check, because I'm an epic dumbass, and it's possible that I made a mistake. So let me go look and do it honestly. And then when you see you did, it's going to take someone to have the humility to say, you know what, I was wrong. I thought that meant that. It actually, this is what it's saying, see? And go through it diligently to make sure you get as much information about it as possible, because you don't want to be, you want to get it right. You don't want to get it wrong. It's going to take someone that does that. And when that person does all that, and he starts to learn these code words and understand like the more deeper parts of it, and you start to see the depths of the Most High's love for us, and you start to fall in love with His Word and Him, and you're like in a daze. You're just in a daze looking at Him, and you're just saying, your mouth's wide open, and you're saying, and He's saying, oh, go do this, and you're saying, okay, whatever you want, Abba. When you get to that point, and you look back at how you got to that point, and you realize that this is love. This is what it means to love Him and serve Him and fear Him and love His Word and read His Word with desire and all eagerness. When you realize that, you're going to realize that the entire world really doesn't care about the Most High. And you understand that getting others to see that is it's an up mountain climb, and it's going to be brutal. But because of all the amazingness that you've witnessed and you're aware of now, and you're a lover on that level now, you'll begin to stop counting the cost of sharing His good news. It won't be about the beating you'll take. It's a no-brainer. It should be obvious to you. You are forgiven when you start to understand what His Word says and you act on it. No one likes a fat mouth. No one likes someone who talks smack about everything. And you know you can't believe them for nothing, that they're lying. They've proved that they're full of shit time and time again. But yet here they are. They're still promoting, campaigning on this loyalty to the Most High, this love to Him. Who is going to want to live and dwell with that person for eternity? I know I wouldn't. You probably wouldn't. You shouldn't. And the Most High, He's chief. He ain't no dummy. He definitely ain't. He's not interested in living with someone like that that's just going to bullshit him. And they want you to believe that their words is what proves their love for you and their loyalty. But their actions prove otherwise. He's not a dummy. And He said to them, "Do you not understand this parable? How then shall you understand all the parables? The sower sows the word. These then are the ones by the wayside where the word is sown. And when they hear, Satan comes immediately and takes away the word that was sown in their hearts." And that's going to happen. That's why you got to be on guard. You got to be on a firm foundation. And you got to want to live in order to protect it from the enemy. Because he will come to uproot it before it gets, it gets planted in there firmly to where it ain't going nowhere. And likewise, these are the ones sown on rocky places who then, who, when they hear the word, immediately receive it with joy. And they have no root in themselves, deistic, but are short-lived. Then when pressure or persecution arises because of the word, immediately they stumble. I always just looked at that as grief I take any kind of like grief I would take while I'm speaking the word of the Most High. Like, if you preach the word or try to pray or something, that's how I've always thought my whole life that's what it was talking about. That you would receive pressure and persecution because of you sharing the word. Well, let me tell you how that's false. Now that will happen, that happens, but even more so, what the bigger picture is of all that is when you come to the truth that sets you free, found in His word, and you act on it, you're set free. And the enemy, the world, is always going to try and pressure you and persecute you into avoiding the truth and what's right. He's going to lay out that trap and try and convince you to go the wrong way and do what's wrong. How many times have you got to hear that saying, actions speak louder than words? I'm not hearing anything if I'm not seeing the actions to match the words. I guess seeing is believing, I guess, huh? They immediately stumble. Which is worse? That's you're denying the set-apart spirit of truth. When you see the truth about something, but you continue to do it wrong, and others are sown among thorns. These are they who hear the word, and the worries of this age, and the deceit of riches, and the desires for other matters, entering in, choke the word, and it becomes fruitless. Now, let's think about this for a second. If the word is just all it's telling you how to do is to be the best person you can be, a better person, why would, if that's all it's telling us, why do we let the world pressure us and the deceits of riches and other matters choke that out? How does having riches and matters of this world, how does those things choke out the word if the word is simply just telling us how to be the best person we can be? Example, first thing that come to my mind, the whole rainbow issue and same-sex marriage and all that stuff. If you believe that that's wrong because you read it in the word, you know you fear the Most High, and you would never agree to that being right, you'll always denounce that. It'll always be wrongness to you. How is it that the lust of this world and money and stuff like that, how could that choke that out? I mean, I guess there's some people who do about anything for $1, huh? But in that, in understanding what the Messiah really is getting at when he says what he said in verse 19, when you look at what it's going to take for you to go to the place where he placed his name on the feast days, every appointed time that he's made an appointment for you to be there, When you look and start realizing and think about all the reasons you won't do it or consider going and doing it, you're going to realize that that's exactly what happens. The cares, the deceit of riches, the desires for other matters choke the truth of going home, the truth of being part of the reign out every time. So those things choke it out and it becomes fruitless. And those sown on good soil are those who hear the word and accept it. They accept it. They're like, okay, I guess if it goes against what I've been doing, well, who is my master? If it does, if it tells me I've been doing something wrong, if I don't make the adjustments, correct course, then the word ain't my master. And if I'm telling you it is, but I'm not correcting course, I'm a damn liar. Don't believe nothing I say. Prove everything, regardless of who it is. You have to accept it. Then it bears fruit. And it's going to be a lot. And he said to them, would a lamp be brought to be put under a basket or under a bed? Is it not to be put on a lampstand? This word of this good news, these things that the Most High has been opening our eyes to, are things that you will agree, scholars, people have pondered over, wondered what the answers were to a lot of these things. And you've seen the truth of them with your own eyes, just like I have. You know, I've just been recently realizing that one thing that has kept me going and made this who I am, this whole journey, and me sharing the good news, one thing that's kept me going, because I would get a good word and I might be able to share it, but then I would like get embarrassed or something and feel stupid, and then you wouldn't hear no more out of me for a while. But one thing that's give me the what's caused me to be able to overcome those fears and to just keep pushing the message out, one thing is I noticed that because I don't want to get any of this wrong, it's caused me to examine it thoroughly, actually examine what I'm saying to make sure it's true. And because of that, it's been like a snowball effect. It's kept me on the hunt, and it's increased, it's built a desire to get it right within me. And at the same time, because I've been following the truth, the Lamb, wherever he leads me, I've entered into this romantic relationship with the Most High that, to me, nothing else matters. Love and marriage, baby. You can't have one without the other. You can be trifling and promiscuous. Oh yeah. There's all kinds of that everywhere you look. But to be loyal and lovingly committed, a full participant, well, you got to fully participate, don't you? And it's not a question of whether or not you'd like to participate. It's a no-brainer. And he said to them, would a lamp be brought to be put under a basket or under a bed? Is it not to be put on a lampstand? And just think about this. If there's truths that you've heard here, that your ears have been privy to in your eyes, some understanding that you know a lot of other people, probably people you talk to, you love, are unaware of it. How are you going to sleep at night without trying to share that message? And if you're worrying about, if you're saying, I'm no good at that, I can't do that, that's the work. That excuse never works. If you've heard it, it's your obligation to share it. And it should be your desire anyways. And over time, you'll learn that if you mess up, well, that's because you're an epic dumbass like myself, and you're bound to mess up. And you can live with yourself when you do, because you understand that that's just how, that's the order of things. You can't do anything. All you can do is just keep following Dad's voice and trying to get it right every day. You can't stay on the ground when you stumble. You have to get up every time and keep on a-trucking. Whatever is hidden shall be revealed, and whatever has been kept secret shall come to light. If anyone has an ear to hear, let him hear. And he said to them, take heed what you hear. With the same measure you use, it shall be measured to you, and more shall be added to you who hear. And like I say too, the Most High don't bite. Don't be afraid to come on out here in these deeper waters of truth. Yeah, it seems scary sometimes when you realize you're about to open your eyes to some facts, and that you realize the world and yourself had been living a lie. Don't be afraid of it. Hear it. Open your ears. Hear it. Look at it. Accept it. And live it. There's nothing to be afraid of. For whoever possesses, to him more shall be given, but whoever does not possess, even what he possesses shall be taken away from him. And he said, the reign of the Most High is as when a man scatters seed on the ground, then sleeps by night and arises by day. While the seed sprouts and grows, he himself does not know how. For the soil yields crops by itself, first the blade, then the head, after that the completed grain in the head. And when the crop is ready, immediately he puts in the sickle, because the harvest has come. And he said, to what shall we compare the reign of the Most High? Or with what parable shall we present it? Like a mustard seed, which when it is sown on the ground is smaller than all the seeds on the earth. And when it is sown, it grows up and becomes greater than all plants, and forms large branches, so that the birds of the heavens are able to nest under its shade. Now, for any of you who've been around and saw me at this mission for a while, if you even went back and looked, you'll see how much we've grown here. The transformation from still a baby, but from the beginning, when I finally got the guts to start hitting the record button and reading the Most High's word and praising him publicly. I mean, I was such an infant back then. And like I said, I'm still a baby now. And I'll never get used to doing this, and I don't want to. I love doing it. And I understand that it's my obligation. And no doubt I've matured and gained understanding in His Word because we've been after it this whole time. And hopefully, I know some of you have matured right along with me. And nothing's changed. When I first started, the doubters and the haters laughed and they mocked and they scoffed. They still do now. And the world will never see any of this production, any of this work that we've done here on this channel. But those of us who've been here, we've seen, and we understand that no one's going to look pretty doing this, because that's all a part of this journey is humility and understanding your place and who you are, and that it ain't about you, it's about Him. It's all esteem. In the beginning, I named my channel Escape Babylon. And then I named my Facebook group Escape Babylon. And then I changed my YouTube channel to De Facto and The Remnant. And then it was De Facto. And then I changed it to All Esteem. So it's been a journey. And I've never had all the answers. I haven't had any of them, except for what we found in the Word. I've had some unique experience. I've lived some unique experiences that would help me appreciate certain things, maybe a little different than other people would have or would. So it's gave me a unique place. It's like me being a Roma, a gypsy. That's just living that lifestyle right there. It gives me a unique perspective on following the Word on different things, and among other things, just not me being a Roma, but there's other things, and that's how it had to be. But I want to make it as beautiful and dynamite for the Most High as I possibly can. But anytime it appears that way, it's got nothing to do with me. And whenever it does have something to do with me, you get to see my epicry on full display. So this, what we've planted here on this channel and the other channels, it's a tree that's grown. And yes, the world still largely sees it as pathetic, and it will continue to see it that way. But the reality is that we've been getting her done. Now, can we do better? Always. Should we try? Absolutely. A lot of birds of the heaven have been able to nest under this shade. And with many such parables, he was speaking to them the word as they were able to hear. And he was not speaking to them without parables. Refuse it. Was he just a jerk? Just playing games? Is that what it was? No. Understanding what these words mean and the parable and what he's getting at, why he uses certain words and certain parables, when you start to understand that, it's like if he would have just said it plainly without a parable, it would only been a few words. You know how they say a picture's worth 1,000 words? Well, a parable's worth trillions of words. And you'll always be able to gain from understanding it throughout your life. And I don't want to say the depths of it, because I don't know if there's an end to it. The truth and the love that you start to see and are made aware of, that the Most High has for you, and how amazing He is and perfect. You understand that there's no end, there's no depth. It's just there. There's no top or bottom. There's no ceiling. It's unlimited. So the parables are our greatest ally, our greatest tool, the only way to communicate. So He never spoke to them without parables. And when they were alone, He explained all to His taught ones. And I mean, but just think about that. He explained to them what the words meant, but they had to be there wanting to know what they meant, didn't they? He didn't run them down and drag them back up wherever He was for the night and make them hear the words. They were there, ready, eager, Berean style, if any of them figured it out. That's because they wanted to. It means that they wanted to. And on the same day, when evening had come, He said to them, "Let us pass over to the other side." And having left the crowd, they took Him along in the boat, and as He was. And other little boats were also with Him. And there came a great windstorm, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already being filled. And He was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke Him up and said to Him, "Teacher, is it no concern to you that we perish?" And having been awakened, He rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And He said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you not yet belief?" And they feared exceedingly and asked each other, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey Him?" They didn't know Him. They didn't believe that those things were possible. The hiding of the city and the revelation of it. All this truth that the Most High has been giving us, because we've been looking. The world largely, the majority of the world, they don't believe it. They can't fathom that being the truth. That there is a fake Holy Land and people, an imposter, and that would be the image of the beast. All this stuff that we've learned. They ain't never going to believe it, because they don't believe something like that amazing can happen. That beyond what you can fathom. But that's the world putting a limit on the Most High and setting themselves higher than they ought to. We ought to understand that He has the ability to blow our mind at any given time, any moment, and never stop. And who are you to think that He can't? And they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gadarenes. And when He came out of the boat, immediately there met Him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him, not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken pieces, and no one was able to tame him. And continually, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. And seeing Yahusha from a distance, he ran and bowed down to him. And having called out with a loud voice, said, "What have I to do with you, Yahusha, Son of the Most High, Mighty One? Swear to the Mighty Most High not to torture me." For he had said to him, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." And he was asking him, "What is your name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, because we are many." And he begged him very much that he would not send them out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs was there feeding near the mountains, and all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs so that we enter into them." They didn't want to leave the country. And he gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered into the pigs. They were about 2,000, and the herd rushed down the steep place into the sea and drowned in the sea. And those who fed the pigs fled and reported it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what had taken place. So they came to Yahusha and saw the demon-possessed one, him who had the legion, sitting and dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. How many times have you read this story? Probably a lot, right? Well, if you're like me, I always kind of read past it, and I never really think too much about what's going on. But what I realized today reading this, something I realized that's going on, is the most important thing to think about, and it's something that I never really did consider before. They seen this man that they knew. They lived there with this crazy man living in the mountains, scratching himself all night, howling like a wild beast. No one could tame him. And someone come told them that Yahusha done booted 2,000 demons out of him. They ran into some pigs that drowned themselves. And when they came to see it, they seen the man who they knew was out of his mind, sitting there all dressed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. And those who saw it related to them what was done to the demon-possessed one and about the pigs. And they began to plead with him, to Yahusha, to leave their borders. To leave. Why? What do you want to bet that they were people who said they believed in the Most High and feared him? But why did they not want this kind of healing to take place? They must have liked it better when they had a crazy person living out by the cemetery. Why did they like that? I can't explain that. I can't put my finger on the reason why people do things like that, but I know it's true because I've seen things like that done my whole life. People can talk their whole life and cry about finding a resolution to something. And then when presented with the solution to their problem, they oftentimes don't take it which proves that they really didn't want it. They liked it. They just were happy being miserable and whining and bitching all the time. They never really did plan on doing anything. It's opposition. This is the Messiah. We see the face of his opposition every time we read about him. And I know I see it in my own life, all the opposition. There's all kinds of people. I read that story earlier about Wisconsin, where I grew up, Ho Chunk Nation. That's in this town called the Wisconsin Dells. There's two towns. One's called Lake Delton, and the other one, it's like its twin little town. It's called the Wisconsin Dells. And it's like the water park capital of the world. There's Noah's Ark water park there. There's 3 or 4 of them, and these great big indoor resort motels like the Kalahari and the Black Wolf Lodge and all this stuff. And it's a vacation getaway place. And it's one of the funnest places. When I was a kid, I remember having so much fun there. I grew up like 30 miles from there. And that is where a lot of my Rumlachel cousins go to. Some of them live there permanently, but in the summertime, it's a summertime hub for Rumlachels, for Roma people. In the summertime, there'll be thousands and thousands of Roma in that town. And my uncle owns a big church there. And in the summertime, there'll be tons of Rumlachel in that church on Sundays. And I've been around people that sit and they Bible thump and they preach and they talk about the word, and I've seen it my whole life. I know all kinds of people that would preach your ear off of you and tell you things like the traditional method of quote unquote believers. They'll tell you, and try to offer prayer for you and put their hand on their shoulder and feel like you need something from them. And that if you listen to them, you can come up and be a better person like them, maybe. Basically. And now I'm not saying that they realize that's what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they realize it or not. What matters is what they're doing. That's what they're doing. I know lots of people like that would slap you up one side and down the other with the Bible, and just looking at you, they already got a bunch of things that they would have you fix about yourself. I know lots of people like that I would love to sit and tell some understandings that the Most High gave me about His Word. I'd love to talk about it with them. They refuse. They'd rather die. They won't. You can't get them to talk about it. They won't talk. They would prefer to continue beating people up one side and down the other with it, with the Bible. Like try and share the news about what the thunder and lightning means with your traditional believer. Let me know how that works out for you. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to tell you, they're going to ask you why it matters. They're not going to see why it would matter. They're not going to care. So they begged him to leave their borders. And as he was entering into the boat, he who had been demon-possessed begged him that he might be with him. And Yahusha did not allow him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends and report to them what the Master has done for you, and how he had compassion on you." And he left and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Yahusha had done for him, and all marveled. And when Yahusha had passed over again by boat to the other side, a large crowd assembled to him, and he was by the sea. And see, one of the rulers of the congregation came, Yair by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet and begged him strongly, saying, "My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come, lay your hands on her to heal her, and she shall live." And when he went with him, and a large crowd was following him, and they were thronging him, and a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had suffered much from many physicians, and spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather became worse. Having heard about Yahusha, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I only touch his garments, I shall be made well." And immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And immediately Yahusha, knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his taught ones said to him, "You see the crowd is thronging you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he was looking around to see her who did this. And the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done to her, came and fell down before him and spoke to him all the truth. And he said to her, Daughter, your belief has healed you. Go in peace and be relieved from your affliction. As he was speaking, they came from the ruler of the congregation's house, saying to him, Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? But having heard the word that was spoken, Yahusha said to the ruler of the congregation, Do not be afraid, only believe. And he allowed no one to follow him except Kepha and Jacob and John, the brother of Jacob. So they came to the house of the ruler of the congregation and saw a commotion and much weeping and lamenting. And coming in, he said to them, Why make this commotion and weep? The child has not died, but is sleeping. And they were laughing at him. When he told them that he was asleep, that the child was asleep, they laughed. And when he had put them all out, he took the father and the mother of the child and those who were with him and went in where the child was lying. And taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Talitha Kumi, which is translated, Little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl arose up and was walking, for she was 12 years old. And they were completely astonished. But he ordered them many times that no one should know it, and said that she should be given food to eat. Now, I gave you a heads up in the beginning of this, and said something that I often say. That, well, for one, I told you to watch his feet, and that he's got all the right moves, and that all these words are all the way necessary. You think it's random that the little girl was 12 years old, that the woman who touched his garment had the flow of blood, the affliction, for 12 years, and that the man who had the was demon possessed had been possessed for 12 years? Do you think that's just random that happened? Because it ain't. He's explaining, this is just as much a parable as all the rest of it. The 12 should let you know it's talking about the 12 tribes of Yasharal. And this is all, people talk about foreshadowing. This is all about what I've been saying the Bible is all about. What these movies are talking about the return, about coming home, about Jerusalem, the place where the Most High placed his throne, becoming healed. And us who are joined in set apart matrimony to him are healed. It's all, everything is healed and intact. That's what this is. It's a foreshadowing. And the Messiah is the truth, the word. And all Jerusalem has to do is touch the edge of his garments. There ain't nothing that cannot be done when the mission is to seek the truth, accept the truth, live the truth, do the truth. There's nothing that cannot be achieved. Nothing. And the only way that these great and mighty things are not achieved is through disbelief. When anyone ever says, I don't believe that, you're not going to believe it, and you're never going to see it until you can say, yeah, that's possible. Oh yeah, the Most High could do that for sure. That's not out of his capability. He has no capability. He's capable of all things. Of all things. like this. When you start to realize why that number 12 was used and what it's talking about, you're getting into those deeper, those depths of the Most High's love for you and his passion, his romance. When you're realizing that stuff, that's when you are in a relationship with him. Until then, until you start knowing what his favorite color is, what he's talking about, and listen to him, and know that he's listening to you, and that it's a mutual affection for one another. Until that is happening, anyone who says they're in a relationship with him, you can tell whether they are or not. And the majority of the world who says they are in a relationship with him are just like a gold-digging hoe who, yeah, they tell their husband that they love him and that it's only them, but chances are they're probably sleeping with the milkman during the day while their husband's gone, and they've probably cheated, and if not, they want to, but the money's good, and so they settle for the money. And it's never as strong on one side as it is the other side. It's always unbalanced. I read this to you guys about Elijah and the 42 youths. Let's read it real quick. It's 2 Kings. I wanted to make a correction too, and make a correction. It's 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 23 and 24. And in a prior video, I had said it was 2 Kings chapter 7, but it ain't. It's chapter 2. Look right here, verse 23. And he went up from there to Bethel, and as he went going up the way, some youths came from the city and mocked him and said to him, "Go up, bald head, go up, bald head." And he turned, verse 24, and he turned around and looked at them and pronounced a curse on them in the name of Yahuwah. And 2 female bears came out of the forest and tore to pieces 42 of the youths. And I've been saying these numbers aren't random. It's not a coincidence. Look, this is verse 24. You see that? Verse 24. Right there. Verse 24. And it says 42 youths. That's not by accident. That's by grand design. Divine design. And just as much so is the reason that at the end of verse 23 says, "Go up, bald head," twice. It's all necessary, and you need to understand why it is that he said it like that. How do you fix that? How do we climb that, attempt to climb that hill, that mountain? We take it from the top, baby. And it came to be when Yahuwah was to take up Elijah to the heavens by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Now, I want you to understand what is happening. This is so beautiful, and it's hard to fathom, and it reminds me so much of my story. Because those of you, if anybody's still listening to this, you're probably someone that knows a little bit of my story. You know that I'm out here with my son. It's just me and my son. And I've talked about it before, how we've been gone for almost a year. And it was like 8 months before anyone even really noticed. And if I wanted to, I probably could have stopped that from happening. It might still be that no one would know or care. And really the only reason that it did finally come out was because they wanted to invite me to a Baal worship and holiday like they do every year, other people. And so no one's asked me really why we did that. And if anyone did, if you ask me why, I mean, you should know that I see now that this is what we have to do. We have to leave everything like that. But what was I leaving? No one even cared that we were gone. No one cared. When people finally realized that they weren't going to get something out of me, there was like I all up until that time, I lived my life. It was like a process of elimination. It just kept eliminating people from coming to me, trying to use and manipulate me. Like it started out with everybody done that to me, and slowly I found the strength to walk away from those situations, and I kept narrowing people down and eliminating people till it finally just got to me and my son and the Most High. And if I wouldn't have done that, then I couldn't have left, because they would have never left me alone. It had to come. They had to come to my door seeking what they was desiring from me, that was only meant to destroy me and profit them somehow. It took it took a long time of them finally realizing that it was over, that little gig was over, and that hole was no longer profitable to them. And they realized that it was, it was over. And once that happened, then you never heard nothing from them. But through all that, through seeing how superficial everyone is, and how everyone is full of shit, through all that, I gained appreciation for the truth and for the love the Most High has for me, and for loyalty and those things. So it's all been, right on time, like everything else. But this story reminds me of me and my son. I never knew until just recently that Elisha was Elijah's son. Listen to this story and think about my story, and let me know if you see those stunning connections. Came to be when Yahuwah was to take up Elijah to the heavens by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. So it came to the time where Elijah was to go up and live with the Most High. And Elijah said to Elisha, "Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Bethel." And Elisha said, "As Yahuwah lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they went down to Bethel. So you know what's going on? Elijah was trying to ditch his son, Elisha, because he knew that the Most High said, "You're coming with me." And he didn't say you and Elisha, he just said just you. And Elijah, I'm just trying to think how it must have been. I'm sure Elijah was like, didn't know how to do it, like didn't know what to say. Like what? It would be like asking me to walk away from my son. And he's the only thing that, praise Abba, that I haven't had to walk away from. And It will suck if I ever have to do that. Man, that would suck. But I won't be surprised if that's what has to happen. Because I'm not putting any limits on the Most High. He's blown my mind so much that I would be a damn fool to think that that's all there was. That there was no more. And, you know, my son's 14, he'll be 15 this summer. He's about 6'3". I'm already looking up at him. And, you know, it won't be long, he'll be a man. He's turning into a young man. And I'm sure he's going to want to do things his own way, I would say. And it might, you know, once he's an adult, I mean, I can't do nothing. I can't make him do anything. So that's out of my hands if that happens. Elijah said to Elisha, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said, as Yahuwah lives and your being lives, I do not leave you. And they went down to Bethel. It reminds me of a little kid, like on their first day of kindergarten when their mom drops them off for school and they don't want to go. They don't want to leave their mom and they cry. But worse, like if you know the story of Elijah and Elisha, like they've been through a lot together up to this point. That's his dad. And I'm sure he don't want to believe it. His dad's probably trying to figure out ways to break it to him that, yeah, I'm going on with Abba. And Elisha he can't imagine his life without Elijah. But that's what's required. My mish. I know it's hard to fathom walking away from your job or your house or your town or just being around your family or just doing something that just seems crazy. I know it seems like it's impossible and like you can't do it, but I'm telling you the 100% truth. You have to be determined to walk away from anything for the Most High. It's definitely going to be hard to do. But if it's asked of you and you got to walk away from something and you can't walk away from it to follow the Lamb, you fail. You fail. And if that's the only way to life, if I don't walk away, then I don't love Abba like I've been saying I do if I can't walk away from my son. And if I don't do that and lay that example down for him, he won't be able to do the same thing, which is him choosing to live and choosing what's right for his son or whatever. It's definitely going to be hard. He ain't going to want to watch me walk away if that were to happen. I'm not going to want to see him walk away. Like when he gets a girlfriend or gets married or something, you already know. Chances are he ain't going to want to see me unless he needs something. And I'll be glad to assist him, accommodate him in any way I can. But if he decides he don't want to see me ever again, I can't force him to see me. That's how all this works. You have to choose it. Do not do you not know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from your head? And he said, I also know, and be silent. So, and the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha. They came to the son, and they told him, they said, don't you realize that your dad, the Most High, is taking your dad tonight? And he just said, I know, be silent. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to hear it. And I think he just didn't want to believe it. He just nod in agreement, be like, yeah, I know that's what he said, but he deep down, he didn't think it was ever going to happen, and nor did he want it to. And Elijah said to him, Elisha, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Jericho. And he said, as Yahuwah lives and your being lives, I do not leave you. And they came into Jericho. He wasn't going to let him leave. And the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, do you not know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from over you today? And he said, I also know, be silent. And Elijah said to him, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me to the Jordan, the Yarden. And he said, as Yahuwah lives, he just wasn't having it. He ain't going. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan, the river. And Elijah took this mantle and rolled it up and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them passed over on dry ground. And it came to be, when they had passed over, that Elijah said to Elisha, ask what I am to do for you before I am taken away from you. And Elisha said, please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me. And he said, you have made it hard to ask. Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours. But if not, it is not. What he was saying was, if you see me again after this night, that's beyond my control. I mean, if you do, you do. You don't, you don't. And you know what I mean? He couldn't promise him that. And it came to be, as they continued on and spoke, that see a chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into the heavens. And if you think, like with all things, that this is just random, that you don't need to think about all this, that there's no significance in every single detail of this story, just like all the other stories, you're sadly mistaken. You're dead wrong. I say dead for a reason, because you're going to die. You have to accept this truth and acknowledge it. That happened. This story about Elijah and Elisha had to happen in order for you to live among other people. You need this truth. And this is a tool. This kind of tool it unlocks life. And without it, you ain't getting in. Elijah had to, the Most High had to take Elijah from Elisha. Right there. If that would have never happened and they just kept living, Elisha had the potential of going astray. He had to see what you might have to do. He had to watch his dad go away, leave him, and leave him the mantle. In that movie where I was led to this story, that movie, The Vanishing Point, I told you, it's about the wedding supper. It's about the real rapture. And at the end of the movie, right before the main character vanishes, he sees there's people protesting on the side of the road, and this man's holding a sign that says, "Don't forget about Mount Carmel." And I went from there after that movie and went and looked up Mount Carmel, and I found this. And I'd been talking about the 42 stuff. And I'd been the night before reading about the 2 mother bears, the angry mama grizzly bears. And it was all right on time, like all of the Most High's schooling he's been giving us. This is all, you have to understand this. You have to think about it. That you might have to do this someday. You might have to go on with the Most High and leave your closest, the person who is closest to you, who you feel like right now you could not live without. If that's asked of you, you have to choose the Most High in order to really choose the Most High. If you don't choose the Most High, that person you're unwilling to leave could possibly die themselves because of your choices. They have the potential to live or to die as a direct result from the choices you make in their sight. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Yasharal and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garments and tore them into 2 pieces. And he took up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. I got to tell you, at the end of that movie, Vanishing Point, right after you see the sign that says, don't forget Mount Carmel, when the main character vanishes, his best friend that came there to see him finds this little necklace that the main character had that he always kept with him, and it symbolizes the mantle. And his best friend picked it up, and he was a one-eyed man. He had one bad eye, just like the one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind, you know. Well, that represented Elijah and Elisha. He picked up the mantle and he went on. And the whole time, the world, the country, was accusing the main character of all this nasty stuff, and he was just trying to get home to his dying bride. And the whole time, his best friend, the one-eyed guy that picked up the mantle at the end, he was the only one defending him. He kept saying no, he would never do those kind of things. And it represents Elijah and Elisha. Go watch it. Better bring a box of tissues, though, I'll tell you that right now. And he took up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him and struck the water and said, where is Yahuwah the Most High of Elijah? And he struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, and Elisha passed over. And when the sons of the prophets who were from Jericho saw him, they said, the spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha. And they came to meet him and bowed to the ground before him. And they said to him, look, there are 50 strong men with your servants. Please let them go and search for your master, lest the spirit of Yahuwah has taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or into some valley. And he said, send no one. But they passed upon him till he was ashamed, and he said, send. So they sent 50 men, and they searched for 3 days, but did not find him. And they returned to him, for he remained in Jericho, and he said to them, did I not say to you, do not go? And the men of the city said to Elisha, look, the site of this city is good, as my master sees, but the waters are spoiled, and the soil is barren. And he said, bring me a new bowl and put salt in it. And they brought it to him. And he went out to the source of the water and threw salt in there and said, thus said Yahuwah, I have healed this water. No longer shall death or barrenness come from it. And the waters were healed to this day according to the word of Elisha, which he spoke. There's so much that I want to tell you about all this. Mind-blowing stuff. You ain't never heard anything as amazing as what I'm about to tell you, or what we've done read so far. That thing I've been wanting to show you, I found that from watching this movie. That movie, The Vanishing Point. And look, if the man wouldn't have been holding the sign that said Mount Carmel, I would have never found this. I typed Mount Carmel in the search bar of my Bible app and found this. And Mount Carmel, it says in other places in the Bible, it says the top of Mount Carmel withered. And they like make a distinction of it being the only mountain around it, that the top of it is withered, that there's no grass or nothing. And here in the place, one of the first things you start to notice is this big mountain that's called Mount Baldy. And one part of it's called Lone Peak, the other part's called Twin Peaks, and then another part's called Thunder Peak. And at the bottom of that, at the foot of that, is this ramp thing, a rampart. It's called Thanksgiving Point. And when you climb up that rampart at Thanksgiving Point, the trail from there to the top of that mountain that's withered at the top, that looks like a throne, that trail is called Jacob's Ladder. And in the trail names is things like wedding bells and harvest and storm window and draper, like drape something down over you, and a lot more than that. And it's amazing. And I found all that through all this, through that movie and reading this. And Mount Baldy, which is Mount Zion, which is Mount Carmel, they say if you Google on Google Maps Mount Carmel, it'll take you down to Moab, to this like knoll down there at this park that's like off limits. That's not Mount Carmel. I mean, that might have been called it by someone else, but it says the top of Mount Carmel is withered, and you can see that it's Mount Zion. And in Zion, it's the middle mountain that sets alone, that is completely different than all the rest, just like we've read about in Enoch and 2nd Esdras and throughout the Bible. It looks like a big white throne on the top. And the back of it is called Mount Baldy. And right beside Mount Baldy, the peak of Mount Baldy, is Twin Peaks, where they made a show named after that, Twin Peaks. That's all about the White Lodge and the Black Lodge, the real place and the fake place. Yeah, sure is. And that's the reason that right here in this chapter it says, go up, bald head twice. And if you think that it's even in the slightest bit a coincidence that it was verse 24 that it says 42 youths were killed by 2 bears, you're dead wrong. Every single word is absolutely necessary. So the water was healed, and no longer shall death or barrenness come from it. And the waters were healed to this day, according to the word of Elisha which he spoke. And he went up from there to Bethel, and as he was going up the way, some youths came from the city and mocked him and said to him, go up, bald head, go up, bald head. This represents what's going on in the world today. Just like chapter 14 of Mark is our journey, like Psalms 23, it's our journey in the short form in a chapter. It gives you the whole blueprint. The lady busted open the expensive flask of perfume, And the people sitting there watching her do that bitched and complained about it, and the Messiah got on to them. And she was willing to give whatever she had for the truth, the word, the way, and the life, the Lamb. And the face of opposition was seen there, just like it always will be until everything's over. You're going to see it. That's the reason these youths come out and we're making fun of Elisha. And you best believe that the words 42, bald head being said twice, is for a purpose that regards you living or not. If you don't believe that, you're on your way to death. You have to understand it. This is about the vanishing point. In Revelations, it says in chapter 14, verse 1, it says, and then I saw those standing with the Lamb on Mount Zion with the name of the Most High on their forehead. And they sang a renewed song, the song of Moses and the song of the Lamb. No one else was able to learn that song. And they ruled and reigned forever with the Most High. You have to understand this right here in 2 Kings in order to understand what all that means. And if you don't care, well, you don't care. But you ain't got to tell us that you do if you don't. We'll know. And he turned back and looked at them and pronounced a curse on them in the name of Yahuwah, and 2 female bears came out of the forest and tore to pieces 42 of the youths. And from there he went to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that on the north side of that Thanksgiving Point and Mount Carmel, Mount Zion, I'm almost positive that that's Samaria, the Salt Lake area, Salt Lake City area. From the Thanksgiving Point southward to Nebo, that's Jerusalem. I know that's Jerusalem. I don't know if Samaria starts at the Thanksgiving Point. I'm pretty sure it does, though. But it might be above Salt Lake City, but I'm pretty sure. And if you think about the story of like the Good Samaritan, like how people from Jerusalem didn't talk to people from Samaria, it's kind of like that right now with the people that live here right now. Like Salt Lake City's, it's nice and everything, but the Provo area, Orem, Sharon, all that, it's where you'd want to be. And the lake down there, Lake Kinnereth or Kenneseth, Lake Utah, it's fresh. There ain't nothing dead in it. You can go fishing out there in that water. You go to the Great Salt Lake up to the north of there, the upper pool, everything that touches it dies. There's just dead animals everywhere all around it. Yep. And Jehoram, son of Arab, began to reign over Yasharal at Samaria in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, and reigned 12 years. 12, there's that 12 again. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, but not like his father and mother, for he removed the statue of Baal, which his father had made. The Most High, you should be well aware that the Most High don't play with Baal. And the Christmas tree, Easter bunnies, all that stuff, that's Baal. He didn't like it then, he don't like it now. But he clung to the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Yasharal sin. He did not turn away from them. And Misha, sovereign of Moab, was a sheep breeder, and he paid the sovereign of Yasharal 100,000 lambs and the wool of 100,000 rams. Oops. And it came to be when Arab died that the sovereign of Moab revolted against the sovereign of Yasharal. And the sovereign Jehoram went out of Samaria at that time and mustered all Yasharal. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, saying, the sovereign of Moab has revolted against me. Do you go with me to fight against Moab? And he said, I go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. And he said, which way do we go up? And he said, by way of the wilderness of Edom. And the sovereign of Yasharal went, and the sovereign of Yehuda and the sovereign of Edom, and went round a journey of 7 days. And there was no water for the army, nor for the cattle that followed them. And the sovereign of Yasharal said, what? Has Yahuwah called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab? And Jehoshaphat said, is there no prophet of Yahuwah here? Then let us inquire of Yahuwah through him. One of the servants of the sovereign of Yasharal then answered and said, Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here, who poured out water out on the hands of Elijah. And Jehoshaphat said, the word of Yahuwah is with him. And the sovereign of Yasharal and Jehoshaphat and the sovereign of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said to the sovereign of Yasharal, what have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father and the prophets of your mother. And the sovereign of Yasharal said to him, no, for Yahuwah has called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab. And Elisha said, as Yahuwah of hosts lives, before whom I stand, if it were not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, I would not look at you nor see you. And now bring me a harpist. And it came to be, when the harpist played, that the hand of Yahuwah came upon him. And he said, thus said Yahuwah, make this wadi ditches, 2 ditches. For thus said Yahuwah, you are not going to see wind nor rain, yet that wadi is to be filled with water, so that you, your cattle, and your beasts shall drink. And this shall be but a light matter in the eyes of Yahuwah, and he shall give Moab into your hand. And you shall strike every walled city and every choice city, and shall cut down every good tree, and stop up every fountain of water, and ruin every good piece of land with stones. And it came to be in the morning, that when the grain offering was offered, that see, water came by way of Edom, and the land was filled with water. And when all Moab heard that the sovereigns had come up to fight against them, all who were able to bear arms and older were gathered, and they stood at the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun was shining on the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood, because the sun was shining off of it. And they said, this is blood. The sovereigns have indeed struck swords and have killed one another, and now Moab to the spoil. And they came to the camp of Yasharal, and Yasharal rose up and struck the Moabites, so that they fled before them. And striking, they struck the Moabites, and they broke down the cities, and each man threw a stone on every good piece of land and filled it. And they stopped up all the fountains of the water, and cut down all the good trees, until only the stones of Kir Hareseth was left, and the slingers went round and struck it. And when the sovereign of Moab saw that the battle was too strong for him, he took with him 700 men who drew swords to break through the sovereign of Edom, but they could not. Then took his oldest son, who would have reigned in his place, and offered him as an ascending offering upon the wall. And there was great wrath against Yasharal, and they left him and returned to the land. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared Yahuwah, and the leader has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elisha said to her, what should I do for you? Inform me. What do you have in the house? And she said, your female servant has none at all in the house except a pot of oil. And he said, go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels, do not get a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all the vessels, and set aside the filled ones. So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought her the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be, when the vessels were filled, that she said to her son, bring me another vessel. But he said to her, there is not another. And the oil ceased. And when she went and informed the man of the Most High, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. Now you should see how none of these words are just random, and that it is saying what I'm telling you it's saying. This right here in 2 Kings, it's telling you what you got to do if you want to enter into that rest and live. You got to go. Elisha asked her, he said, well, what do you got in the house? What do you have? What all do you got? And she said, all I got's a pot of oil. One thing. And he said, well, go get it. Go get everything you got. And she didn't think that'd be enough. Was it enough? It was more than enough, wasn't it? So whatever it is you have in this world, you have to be willing to gather it together and give it up to enter into life. If you can't do that, and it doesn't matter why you do it or not, if you can't go get everything you have and give it away and leave it and not think nothing about it, if you can't do that, you ain't fit for the reign. You ain't coming. And if the reason is, if you don't do that because you don't think you got enough, you don't believe. You're doubting the Most High. You're doubting what he has, what he's capable of doing. Now, I'm not going to read all the rest of this, but you see how this is telling you what you got to do. If you continue to read this, you'll see that this is this prominent woman that says convinced Elisha, because he was passing by, he passes by all the time, to stop and eat some food. And then after that, every time Elisha came by, because he was passing by continually, that word continually, that's there for a reason, he stopped and ate food. And it has the same symbolism that Mark has, that we were just reading from. Look, it says, and a table and a chair and a lampstand, and it shall be whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. This is symbolic of Jerusalem and finding a son to be born. Just like the little girl died in the story in Mark we just was reading. This little boy dies. And Elisha has to go and bring him back to life. And it's a foreshadowing, if that's what you want to call it, whatever. It's winking at you. It's telling you that there's only one land of the living. And you ain't living if you ain't in it. And you don't want it. And you don't come back to it. You'll be in the land of the dead, the pit of the deep. And I mean, it has the doorway. It has every, key tool to understanding what it is you got to do. Look, he says, my head, twice. Bald head. And he said, why are you going to him today? The little boy died, and the woman told the woman at first convinced, before the son died, she convinced her husband to build a room, a guest house for Elisha. So whenever he came by, he could stop in there. She left the light on in there for him, the lamp. So whenever he came by, he could go in there and rest and eat food. She represents the city. The Most High represents the Most High, or the father, the husband represents the Most High. And when the son died, the prominent woman ran, didn't care. She just said, get out of my way. I'm going to get the man of the Most High, Elisha. And the husband said, why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. And she said, it is well. It is well. It doesn't matter. And that's another thing. I'm always telling you that you got to be in Jerusalem on the appointed feast days. But it can't be as just, it can't come down to that just being the rules. I mean, you got to follow the rules, but it has to become your desire. And you won't be there just for the feast days. You're going to want to be there all the time. And that's why in this story, when he raises a little boy from the dead, it says that he walked back and forth in the house. Let me see if I can find it here. The child didn't awake until he got there, until Elisha got there. And when he went in there and stretched himself out on the child, the flesh of the child became warm, and he returned and walked back and forth in the house. If you go read the story that we just was reading in Mark, when he raises the little girl and he says, Talitha, whatever, rise, she walked back and forth in the house. It's symbolic, and it's necessary, like I said, for you to understand it. That if you come back to life and come to the house, that's what you'll do. You're going to walk back and forth. And you'll know no life until you do that, till you come home. That's just how it is. And it's common sense. It's easily confirmed. All it takes is care, love, due diligence, loving commitment, loyalty, and every bit of all esteem. And if you never make it, it's because you didn't give all of it. Not only do your knees have to touch the ground with your head bowed down, but your face as well. And it has to be all esteem or nothing. Because if it's not all esteem, you'll get nothing. But if you can bow yourself, prostrate, face down, with all humility, fear and love, and understanding, and desire, and determination, if you can do that, you'll get all that you could ask for when it comes to life. You're going to get more than you thought existed. And it'll never be done. It's infinite. And the only way to get it is to be living in it.